So now I wrote a song about it.
This is Scene 1, Act 1, vocal recording with Tammy and Aaron, talking about Ada and her grandmother and mother influenced Ada to her best of her memories and our memories and conversation. Again, having photos of her mother and past events. And we're going to go from there, and I'll let her do her intro. Tammy.
Thank you, Aaron. Tammy, better known as Tammy. Tammy Pollard, Tamala Pollard, now Tamala Brown.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking back, I don't have a lot of memories of great grandma Ada. I do have some, and some that do really stick out, when I was a teenager, but when I was younger, not so many. I just knew that we had a really big family, it was a lot of us, and it was really family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the women in the family had a lot of kids, a lot of girls in our family, and not so many boys that I remember. I do remember a lot of us females. And with my grandmother, Mary Lola, who I did not know for a long time that her first name was Mary. I thought her first name was Lola.
Really?
Because that's what everybody in the family called her. Lola, Aunt Lola. So I was like, oh, her name is Mary. Her name is Lola Mary Pollard. They was like, no, her name is Mary Lola, not Lola Mary. And I'm like, oh. So that was my confusion.
Right.
So, everybody knows Aunt Lola, I guess, for her arts and crafts and I guess her baking.
Baking, arts, and crafts.
Baking and arts and crafts. At least that's what I've heard from other cousins. It's like, oh, Aunt Lola could bake some, can make certain foods. And then remember, doing arts and crafts. She loved doing arts and crafts with us, with the kids at the church.
Mm-hmm.
She did that for church from what I remember. Very loving. And I know that sounds cliche to hear, oh, my grandmother was so loving, but that's what I remember. I don't remember her being, real upset or angry.
Right.
I guess that's just how grandmas are. I don't know, but
they're in the zone where nothing really bothers me anymore.
Yeah, she just was very loving and caring, and I think I remember stories like my mom wouldn't let me do certain stuff, but my grandmother would be like, let her do it.
Yep.
Or my mom, I remember I wanted a white doll baby, and don't judge me, y'all, but I didn't relate to the darker skinned doll babies because I didn't look like that. Because back then the doll babies were either real black or they was white.
Right. It wasn't.
And so I was like, I don't want that baby. That baby don't look like me. I want the white baby. And my mom was like, no. My mom was like, I'm not buying her no white baby. My grandma said, get her the baby. Get her the doll baby. That's what she wanted. That's what and I've always been like that. So I don't want my family to judge me. I'm not prejudiced or anything, but I ain't like nothing that just did not relate to me. Right. I didn't like blackberries. So remember on the cereal box, on the Cheerios, I think it was Kix or whatever, they would have like the blackberries on the box, but it wasn't in the cereal.
Right.
It was just on the box. I was like, I don't want that black stuff. Anything black I didn't like. And my grandmother always made it okay for me to like what I wanted to like. But my mom was like, mm-mm. But my mom was a young mom. She had me young, so she had me when she was, I want to say she was 16. Then she turned 17 once she had me. I know she was pregnant at 16. I remember that part. I remember seeing a picture. There is a picture of her in her cap and gown with some other cousins. I think Nate's in the picture, and there's a couple of other folks in the picture. I remember that. And I recall that my grandmother actually had to make her cap and gown because she was pregnant.
Right.
So,
She
you
had
know,
adjusted.
yeah, so that was awesome. But I just always remember my grandmother just being kind and sweet and just gentle with us.
I think it's really with my experience dealing with Ada and the influence of her mother, how the traits of the mannerisms of your grandmother and her are very similar, because the kindness, open-mindedness, not judging, being sympathetic to her grandchild, her grandchildren, and with Ada, then you explaining how your grandmother was, Lola, how she was very in that same realm. And I think a lot of times when it comes to learning about, because I'm a grandfather now, so learning
me too. I'm a grandmother. I am a step grandmother.
And it's strange, right? It's strange.
Yes, it's still weird because it's new. He's only 2, so I'm not around him a lot like I would, I guess, if it was my child's. You know, because we don't see each other often, but it's weird.
Yeah, because
but I'm embracing it.
Because it's a whole nother mindset. It's like you're double the open-mindedness of the care you give, and the way you hold and grasp, and everything's different. Everything
it's different.
It's different.
Like, this is so different. It's totally different than how you would treat your own, which is kind of strange. Like, you know, it's like, no, he can just do whatever he wants, or she can just do whatever. It's just a different, I don't know what it is. It's just something about becoming, I guess, that grandparent. I guess I never really thought about it until just now, like how I can kind of relate to our grandparents.
Yeah, because it's a whole nother realm. It's a whole nother sympathetic. It's no judgment. It's nothing but love and support. And that's the thing with Ada. And then I remember interacting with your grandmother, and she was so. And the thing about it's so funny because it felt like the same love. It wasn't no judgment. It's like, even when I got counseled by Ada when I was a kid, I would say a fat kid with no neck, and you know, and I was going through my woes at the age 12 and all that, and between and being bullied and all this other stuff. I always had her influence from her, then her daughter, my grandmother Honey. Even though Honey was like spicy with her ways, and I mean in a good way, but you could tell her influence. You could tell every offspring of George and Ada, their children, when it came to the women, there was love. Each one had a stern point, but you had the love factor and the understanding that, like, I know your grandmother was very loving because she showed nothing but love with me.
But don't get it twisted. Don't mess with her grease. She had this Nivea grease, Nivea like body lotion that you could not touch because that was expensive, I think, back then. Hell, Nivea could be a little, you know, have a price now, I guess. I don't know. But Nivea, I remember like, ooh, what kind of lotion is that Grandma had on her dresser? Don't you touch it. Don't you touch that Nivea, and don't you touch her green brush. She had this green brush that was just for her. Her stuff in her room on her dresser was her stuff, and we was not to touch it, and you know, don't play with it. So she was loving, but she didn't play too when it came to her stuff that was in her room and on her dresser. I'd never forget it. So it's crazy because to this day, one of my cousins has that green brush.
Really? She snatched the brush? She got that brush?
She got the brush. So, like, dang, I think it's my cousin Johnette. I think my cousin Johnette has the brush.
And it comes with a good story, too. It's like, people understand, you know, you do these.
And so, you know, I bought some Nivea recently, actually.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh, and I did. I thought about my grandma. I said, oh, let me get some Nivea. But you know, like right now, it's funny. My grandmother, I think, comes to me, and I know I might be going different. No. I think my grandmother comes to me in numbers. Okay. She speaks to me in numbers and to let me know that she's there. Because every time, I mean, just even yesterday, last night, everywhere I go, her birthday pops up, or the day that she passed away in time comes up every time. I'd be like, oh, 9/21, that's the date she passed away, September 21st. And that number pops up all the time. Like, I can look at the clock and be like, But it's something about that number 921 and 321
Mhm.
that comes up all the time. I'm like, okay, she's here. You know, because it's like, why am I looking at the clock right at 321?
Thank you.
Right at 921. Like,
Mhm.
why is that? You know, so it's weird, but I think that she comes to me through time. Through numbers.
Yeah, those moments that get, again, I was talking to Ebony earlier, and it's like when you look at photos, when you catch a glance of a location, a certain smell, a certain reenactment, or you might listen to your mother's voice, you know, certain things give you a
Little
reaction,
nickname.
emotion.
She
Yeah.
called all us booby. You know, you know, hey booby. You okay, booby? And her hand, it's funny, I have her fingers. So weird. I have like her fingers. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I know my cousin's like, oh gosh. No, but I don't have the nails. Like, you can really see it. Like, oh my gosh, I have my grandmother's hands. Like, so it's, you know, it's she's always around.
Yes.
Always around. And of course, our family gap. You got it too, Aaron.
Yes, I do.
You got that family gap.
Believe me, I try to tell people all the time, don't, if you have to change your appearance, if you have to change your appearance, let it be for your benefit, but at the same time, you inherit DNA for a reason. It's always a good reason.
Yeah.
And that your legacy lives on by one, people visualize. You gotta look at my children, then you look at your children, and you see the influence of their that what you put on them. And it's funny like that because, you know, you live on in different ways, and that's what makes me laugh so much. You live on in different ways. And I'm trying to figure out exactly, every time I look at these photos, it brings moments where, you know, it's like, wow. It's like, look at you, like, God darn, how your mother. It's just when I see your mother and her sisters get together. I think we had it was a function. I think it was the reunion 4 years back, and they took that group photo.
Oh yeah, so the reunion at the Camelot.
I believe so.
I think it was at Camelot.
There you go.
Yeah, she was a little feisty. She had her little. I think before I knew my grandmother, I think she was real energetic and fun. Like, of course, I know her to be a caring grandmother, but to certain pictures that I see of her, like, she did seem like she had like a fun side to her. Because of course, you know, as your grandma, you think sometimes they're a little serious. Some grandmas can be a little spicy. Like you said, you know, I remember your grandma Honey. I remember, you know, Aunt Dolores being so kind as well to me all the time. Like, she was always, hey baby, and she give you the hardest hug, like she hurt your cheekbone because she squeezed it in tight.
Right.
You know, but they all did it. They all was heavy-handed as hell. All our aunts is heavy-handed. Aunt Joyce.
Yeah.
Woo. But you know, they bring you in and they give you that hug and they have that little fun side to them. And you know, when they're excited and happy, and looking at this picture right here at Christmas, I do remember that house, 1280 Barnaby Terrace. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Southeast off of Willow Road.
I know that's right.
Yes, so that's that was a lot of memories in that house. A lot of memories in that house. You know, some fun memories. You know, some got in trouble memories. But with my grandmother, I remember us coming back from a trip when we found out granddaddy, Grandpa George had passed. And so I think she was home alone because at that point I believe my grandfather they had separated. And we all had, I believe we went to King's Dominion or something like that for the day. When we came back home, I remember her telling, you know, my mom and my aunts that her dad had passed, and then just the cry. Like, I've never seen my grandmother cry like that. It was like a scream, like a cry and a scream. And I was like, oh, you know, and I always wonder, I didn't know like how their relationship was between her and her dad. But it made me wonder, you know, like, wow, you know, like what was that? What was it that she was really feeling? Of course, she lost her parent, but
Right, but you didn't
I've
that.
never seen her react like that before. And so I guess to lose a parent is really, really tough. I mean, I know what it's like to lose a spouse, but not a parent. I just, I'm sure that's totally different. It's still a loss, but it's different.
It makes me wonder that relationship.
Mm-hmm. With them,
like
I wish I
mother.
knew more. Like now that she's gone, I wish I could ask her now. Like, well, what was your relationship like with your dad? And maybe I can ask my mom. Maybe my mom. Or maybe one of my aunts.
Yeah, because I mean that's the one thing I try to. Because I was talking to a young cousin about. Wow, they know my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Woo, I don't know. I guess I wasn't there that day.
Pat.
Pat, shoot, man. Oh man, I always try to tell.
Oh, they were so young.
Yeah, I mean, I try to tell people, especially our younger cousins. I know they don't know nothing about, their great grands or people who came way before them.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that our looks, our mannerisms, our influences. But I always wondered, I guess when my father lost, when my grandfather passed, Dennis Jr., and then Honey passed, I made sure I got closer to my father. Not because it came in my mind if I lost my parents. I know that, and you witness, of course, like we all do, social gatherings and all that, how we interact with our parents. And then when they lose their parent, and you reflecting on that story with your grandmother losing her father, George, and you sit there and you be like, I gotta step my game up. I really want to know my father. I want to know my mother, because you created memories because you're the child. You're selfish. You're learning about yourself. You're running. You're not really concerned about them other than providing for you, or you need help. Those things that now as a parent we understand. So they live in their best life as young adults, becoming adults. Right. Now it always takes loss or a moment, or you're next to a friend or another family member who loses their family member or their parent or something, that makes you reflect on, what do I really have? Do I really know my parents? Did I take the time as an adult to learn about their ways? I know about their discipline. I know about how they gave me this, but do I know them individually? And sometimes you don't need to know certain things, but it's always when it's that last moment in life that makes you go, I really see these pictures, and you're going, oh, your grandma was sad. Look at she's sexy ass. She's sexy. I'm like, I know she had
my
that.
granddad look so young though. Look.
I got this.
He look a little scared to me. I don't know. He just looked young. It's just so funny seeing him so young. He looked like a real kid right there in that picture. She just looks a little older, but I see me. I see us. In her face right there, and cheekbones and all that.
She going.
But and it's. I grew up in the same household with her for a long time. So I did get to experience my grandmother and grandfather together, because it was like 13 of us at one point in that 3-bedroom townhouse that we lived in off of Willow Road. So I did, see them together, see how we operated as a family, and he did end up, they separated, but they never divorced. Never divorced. That's something that he wasn't going to do, and I guess that's old school. How old school does it? They don't divorce. They get married. That's it. They not getting married again.
and it's amazing because you mentioned it, because I didn't know that. Of course,
never divorced. Never divorced. Like, she was getting like part of his pension. That was fine for him. He was okay with that. But I think my grandmother, she always been, I guess, is spiritual, but then she became really extra religious at some point. And so I think my grandfather, he's a Mason, and he was into it. And my grandma was like, I think it was a bad, but I don't know. I don't want to speak stuff I don't know, but I assume that there was an issue there, and it caused some separation.
Of course.
And so, I believe that's why, one of the reasons why they kind of separated, but she never stopped loving him. Never. Always just knew he was coming on back, you know.
A different venue of woman of that generation of the influences, because you look at it, not to cut you off, you just sit there and wonder, I feel like sometimes in my own experience, if I would have stuck to my guns,
How would you say?
would I be the person I am now? Or if I didn't make that decision at the time to stick in there and try to fight through it, through these personal emotions and the other person's emotions, and just because you look at the history come from of the values of, even though the value set, they had a reason, they have these other influences, but they had religion was more in depth in them at a young age. It was more the brimstone or the Bible beating you with that philosophy / spirituality and Catholic views and everything. I don't think it was, and you see it, like you said earlier, you see it in your grandmother and your grandfather's mannerism. You see it in this photo. You're like, wow, and the experience you had with them. I look at George and Ada, I'm like, so it did rub off. Certain things you didn't do, certain things you bring shame to your family. Because I was saying earlier that I feel like I live in a kingdom like King of Thrones. George and Ada were the king and queen, the offspring with the prince and princess, and the different sects of families. And you had this certain regiment of how you interact with this family in certain ways, especially in your household. And you go, well, if I was to get married again, if I was to start a whole new family again, it is certain things I know now, just me now.
As we get older.
Yeah,
I would grow and learn. And I think that's why grandparents are more patient and kind, because of the growth, that they have. Look at my grandpa. And my grandma. Boy, I tell you. And I think they always loved each other. I think just, things happened and they just didn't, stay together, but, he always was there still. He was always around.
I mean, he's a cool guy.
And growing up, with them and my mom, though, it's like the things changed, my mom's generation. My mom had me young. She wasn't married. And, they still, of course, embraced me.
Of course. You were born here out of love. That's the one thing that I know.
My father tell the G's, because he's still trying to holler at my mom every day. Don't do that. I'm like, dude, leave my mom alone. Just let her be. Let her be, sir. It's not going to happen. Okay?
And you like I said, you're brought here out of love. My father used to tell me that all the time, and until this day, regardless of what relationship they had with my mother and him, and their breakup, and he always told me, I don't care what happens, you were brought here out of love.
Awesome.
And that's something that I even tell my children. It's like, I know me and your mother, but in our past history, you were brought here out of love. Y'all were loved out of this. Now, what we had between us, donation, a rocky hill, whatever, but you were meant to be here. And again, you try to change the blueprint for them. You go, I don't want you picking up these, I want you to experience love. So their rockiness, and you try to be open-minded. Now, I'm sitting here thinking about, you know what, I talked to some of my younger cousins, and they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know nothing. I said, what about your parents? Like, I talk about, throw some drops of names. I talk about Julia, her children, their children, and they're young, of course. And they're like, who's that? I was like, well, you kind of act like this particular family member.
Okay, because if I was to see her children right now outside on the street,
you would not know.
I would not know who they
you
are.
would not know unless it's a job and you and Julia shows up to pick one of them
Something
up,
like that.
and you go, "Who's it? This is that's my cousin."
Mhm.
Da 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 da. That's happened to me a lot when my daughter was going to high school. I had like literally 7 cousins going to the same school and graduate the same year she graduated.
Mhm.
And that pissed me off in the high
But that's
level.
all that's everywhere you go. I think
Everywhere.
right now in my daughter's school, there's a few folks there that are also related to us, and we just don't know about. I've heard about it, but I really don't know who they are. But they're like extended family,
Mhm.
like on my grandfather's side though. Not on because usually it's on Grandma Ada's side. You know,
right.
You know, we know a lot more about her side than I do about my grandfather's side. But you know, it's like that. You know, we all related some kind of way.
Yeah.
We're all related.
And
But-
you're right, because the funny thing about it is that every time I do research or I ponder here and we have our open discussions,
Mhm.
I know that there's a lot of pieces that we need to fill the blanks in because our experiences with this.
You know, it's funny. When I talk about my grandmother being so loving and so caring, you know, growing up, I don't really remember us, and I talk about this a lot because it always kind of made me think we didn't really say "I love you." I don't know. I'm sure you all probably did, maybe,
Yeah,
and your family, but we didn't. I don't remember it. Now, you know, my brain bad, but I don't remember growing up saying "I love you" as a young child. You know, it was, and so when we started to do it, it was like foreign for me. Like, what? Like, what are you saying to me? Like, of course you know you love your family, right?
Right.
But to actually, like, you know, confess it and say it out loud.
You're
like,
more
okay, love
huggers
you.
and
Now,
but back then.
yeah, but yeah,
when
like
younger?
when we were younger, I just don't remember doing that. Like with my mom, and I always go back. Not saying anything bad about my mom.
No,
but my
no,
mom was
no.
a young mom. You know, she had to grow up, you know, with a child. But I don't remember her saying "I love you" before we went to bed, or "I love you" when she sent me off to school. I don't remember that.
I don't know.
I don't remember it, and we didn't start doing it until I remember the first time a cousin said it to me in my immediate family. It was Bree. Bree was like, "Love you, cousin." I was like, "Girl." It was strange, like,
Right.
And usually when we say "love you," it's because something happened, like, or a tragedy, like somebody died or something. And so I was like, so I always associated saying "I love you" meaning like you're afraid you're not going to see me again or something.
Mhm.
And so it was just foreign for me. I know it's probably kind of weird, but
No,
that
it's
was,
not.
But that was one of my things that I remember, not growing up saying "I love you." And then we just started to say it a little more, like especially like after my husband passed away, which is crazy because that wasn't, I mean, it's been 16 years, but like back then is when we started to say it more, like, you know, because I didn't really experience a lot of death until then. Of course, you know, Grandma Ada passed away, and Grandpa George, but I didn't know them that well, so it didn't affect me.
Right.
And then I was young too, you know, so
Mhm.
it didn't really affect me like it would now, you know, to lose someone like that. And so as I just, you know, as I grew up, then it was like I lost my grandmother on my grandfather's side too, and then again it was just like we lost our other grandparents. It was just like, oh wow, I didn't really know. I didn't have that relationship where we would spend a lot of time with each other. Like I would see my grandparents for Christmas,
Right.
you know, and then that's when we'd be excited because we was young and we knew we was getting money for Christmas. It's like, ooh, how much you think you gonna? Because I was the oldest, so I always got more money than my younger cousins, than Kia and Johnette and them. I was 3 years older, so I would get more money, and so those are the memories I have, you know. But you know, so we didn't have a lot of death. I didn't have a lot of death in the family until you know, my husband passed away. And then it was like, ooh, and everybody was passing away after that. But then I felt like that's when we were more, and I think it's just growth, just us growing up, learning. You know, this is what you do. You show and say, you know,
Mhm.
that, you know, you love your family, you know. Of course, you know, they know it, but you have to speak it. You have to say it.
Because times it's. I agree with you because
Yeah.
I had the same. I had the same with my mother. I know she loves me. She
Mhm.
just from her experience, her growth, young, and it's a
Her
lot.
experience.
Everyone who has their own hurt through their growth, and we gotta think. And we don't think about that as children to our parents because they were their own individuals, like we were
Mhm.
before we took on the panel of getting frisky and starting a family and all this other stuff. And we don't think about how they had to go from this me to us to damn, I really got to focus on this child and their growth and start taking. And you realize you're like I'm realizing that my factor of my choices that I make sure I tell my children how I feel about them in texting and when they do call me or when I do pick up the phone with me, I let them know how I feel about them because I know that there were people who came, my elders who did finally tell me, because not to share something, my father told me something about his father, and that I'm like, this is granddad, you know, he used to show me love and hug me. He said, nah, that was when you were too young, but my grandfather was not a hugger.
Mm.
And he didn't say that till my father had to work on him each time. It takes him, and he realized it took my father to get back from Vietnam, go through his 2-year withdrawal, and start from his experience of life and how life is precious to him to realize his father wasn't too much of an SOB growing up because he was real hard because he's the oldest son. So he's starting to realize now I'm going to express my emotions. But overall, this has been great, Tammy. I really do appreciate you sharing. And I know this project is definitely a Black Love 1920.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I really do appreciate you and the whole family. And I learned more about you and you learn more about
Yes,
myself.
we're learning about one another.
And this experience doing this
Yes.
documentary and this stuff. And realize, again, it's shocking that you're my God sister. You know?
Yes.
You know,
Yes. And yes. Y'all used to scare me. We're not gonna
We
talk about
will
that.
talk about that later on, you know, because again, our influences.
Yes, our influence.
I'm shocked that I scared you now. My brother, yes, all day, every day.
Well, yeah, because it was both of y'all together. So
Oh, Lord have
it might
mercy.
have been him, but I was blaming you too. But it's all right.
It's okay, you know, we're all damaged goods.
But yes, my grandmother, love her, miss her. My mom's a great grandma too, I must say. And I think it's just us just growing. You know, when you're young, you're just learning, right? You're learning, you're growing, and you hopefully you grow into this, you know, this great adult that can, you know, pass on that you know, experience and wisdom to your, you know, your offspring. That's what you hope.
Yeah, that's like playing craps. Oh, Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's I have been blessed to have those memories with my grandmother growing up, and also the memories with my mom, because me and my mom, of course, we live together still now. We've lived together off and on my entire life. You know, with life changes and things happen, it's like we can't stay away.
That's
It's like, you know, when my husband passed away, she, you know, moved in, you know, to help me through that. And, you know, stayed with us for a long time, you know, went on, lived her life, and then she can end up coming back. And it's just, you know, I think we're going to always be together. Even if she has another relationship in her life, even if I have another husband come through, she going to be there. I'm going to be there, she going to be there. It's just us. So
and I think that's
that one, I'm her own one and only, and my child is my one and
no.
only. Well, at least biologically.
But either way,
One
you
and
know,
only. So-
you're right about that. I do appreciate those moments and the support, and that's what's about support.
Yeah, you got to support your family, and a lot of kids out here, speaking to children, You know, you don't realize how good you have it when you have that family members that are there to support you, to protect you, to ride for you. You know, there's kids out here that don't have that. You know, they don't have that support. They don't have that family, you know, support for them. So treasure it, hold on to it. Don't fight it, because these young kids, ooh, they hard-headed these days. Like, just trust the process. Trust what we're telling you. You know, I always tell my daughter, I'm not telling you nothing that's going to hurt you or harm you. Like, I'm telling you from experience, and I'm telling you because I love you and I care. And, you know, I didn't really hear that growing up. You know, I
think it was more shown. I think it was
more shown than spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not saying my mom didn't, because she did, you know, and my mom did a, you know, damn good job. I turned out quite all right for her to have, you know, taken on that alone, you know, taking on me.
They gave more ride than more speeches. Now we give more speeches than less ride when it comes to our philosophy.
Yeah.
Because again, the techniques and mindset during your mother's parents would definitely put a lot of our children either in the psych ward or running away from home constantly. They don't love me. No, they love you. They
no,
just
we love you. You just don't get. They'll get it one day though.
Yeah, they'll get that tough love.
Everybody ran away. I ran away from home one time. My damn self. I was like, what the hell? Like when you think back at it now, like what the hell I was running away from?
Man,
I was running too. Cause I was mad, cause spoiled, cause I didn't want to get my way.
Comply.
The way I run to down the street. I ran down the street to my Aunt Sean's house. And my Aunt Sean wasn't home, so I went to Aunt Joy's house. Oh. It was right on the same path, you know.
Right.
I was on Willow Road, and it's like that Southern Avenue or whatever. I think it was Southern Avenue, one of them roads. Went down there, Aunt Sean wasn't home. Oop, can't go there. Called myself, I had my little bag. You know how they, you know, when you pack your little, like old school, you had like the stick, and you had like the little, you know, the t-shirt or something with your stuff packed in it. Like, I thought I was really doing something, right? I was like, do I go to Aunt Joy's house? Like, Aunt Joy's going, I'm going to get in trouble if I go to Aunt Joy's house. So I don't remember them days, but needless to say, I took my ass back home.
You made an executive decision at a young age.
Yeah, don't take your ass back home. So
to be continued.
Yes, but yes, this is great. I'm really enjoying this, talking about the old times. The pictures are awesome.
Yeah, they're
to reflect back. Even that picture over there on the side,
on
the screen. One of my faves, because everybody's in it.
Yeah, this right here keeps me balanced. That's why I keep it out, because
it's an awesome picture.
It really lets
a lot of stories in that. A lot of stories from them folks.
I'm looking at the face your grandma making here. Look at that face. Look at that face she making. This question, it leaves a lot of Q&A. Like, what is she? Who the family's cutting up to the point where she going? Really? Oh, what? What? You bring yourself in. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I love still pics and
look at all them ladies and a few fellas.
Yeah, that's
always like that in our family.
Yeah, for real. Oh my God.
For a long time, like in our immediate family, I'm like, we're gonna get some boys over here. It was like two boys for the longest. It was like 13 of us, and it was like 2 boys.
It's never mind. I just say something. It's gonna be a whole way from rated R with the PG-13 to rated R real quick.
Oh, Lord.
But anyway, here we thank you. You've been listening to Tammy and Aaron here on Black Love 1928, and you'll hear from us in the near future. Thank you again. Please contact us at that Gmail account, and I'll be posted at the end of this. And again, peace, people. Thank you.
All worth it. You play me good just